Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, another Miraculous Ladybug lyrical one-shot, 1,000 years. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the notification button. And if you have any recommendations of songs you want to do or you want me to attempt, comment down below. Okay, hope you enjoy. A 1,000 years. Adrien's POV. Plague, I'm doing it today. I'm gonna tell her, Adrien declared to the tiny black body sticking out of the cheese wheel as he darted around his room, searching for things to place into his school bag, but not able to focus on one thing. You're gonna tell a ladybug? But you tell her all the time. A large mouthful of gooey cheese slightly muffled Plague's voice. No, I love Ladybug, but it's changed and become deeper friendship. No, I've realized for a while now that I have feelings for Marinette. I think, no, I know, I'm in love with her. Adrien picked up his phone and stared at the group photo of his closest friends on the lock screen, including Marinette, as he placed it into his back pocket. Marinette? Plague poked his head up, his eyes following the figure of Adrien, causing him to become dizzy. Adrien stopped and stared at his supposed-to-be friend. Weren't you listening at all last night as I poured my heart out? I was crafting my own love story with a delicious, aged to perfection piece of camembert. I just thought you were talking about your love of Ladybug and I stopped listening. Sorry. Plague, some friend you are. So, what, you've changed? I thought she was just a friend. Plague threw up another lump and caught it in his mouth with great pride for himself. Lots of things and nothing at all at the same time. I think the more time I spend with her, the more I want to be near her. Adrien could feel his cheeks blush and avert his gaze from Plague's quizzical stare. And it doesn't help the fact that you've been visiting her as Chat Noir. His little friend flew up in the front of his face and gave him a knowing look. It helped me to see the different side of her and notice how confident she is becoming. She is different with Chat and I want that as Adrien, so I have to make it happen. By confessing your love? Yeah, why not? But she told Chat she likes someone. She loves someone. What if it's not you as Adrien? What if it's Chat or someone else altogether, kid? Adrien shrugged his shoulders, picked up his bag off his desk. I have to try. I have to at least try to hope that she has a fraction of what I feel for her. Come on, Plague, let's go. Adrien held his shirt open as he heard Natalie call for him. Adrien climbed out of the car and instantly searched the crowd of his school friends for a sight of Marinette. A wave of Nino's hand in the air, calling him over, grabbed his attention as he spotted Alia with him, but no Marinette. Morning, dude. Nino had his arm around Alia, who was leaning into him and throwing her boyfriend an occasional loving smile. A pang of jealousy, followed by guilt, hit him. He should be pleased for his friend instead of envious. Morning, guys. I just need to drop off my bag off in my locker. I'll see you in class. Cool, they replied as they ambled past him and headed through the arch. He needed to be fast if he wasn't going to be late. The locker room was empty. Also, he thought until he saw Marinette lifting a maths book out of her bag and placed it onto the middle shelf. The thought came to him. This was the moment he had been searching for. Okay, hearts, beats, fast, colour and promises. How to be brave. How can I love when I'm afraid to fall? But watching you stand alone, all of my doubts suddenly goes away somehow. One step closer. Marinette, I need to tell you something. He glanced to the sides and checked they were alone in the locker room. Adrien stood in front of her and without saying a word, linked his fingers around her open palm. Adrien, what's wrong? She was blushing, staring at his hand in hers. He moved a step closer and stroked her cheek that reminded him of a pink peony. I have died every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for 1,000 years, and I'll love you for 1,000 more. She leaned in closer to kiss him. Adrien? Adrien? What's wrong? Are you feeling alright? You look a little flushed. Marinette moved closer, inspecting her friend, who was suddenly void of words. What was you needed to tell me? She gave him a warm smile. Oh, who was he kidding? He couldn't tell her here. Confess his love amongst the smelly socks, and the chance that someone would walk in on them as Marinette brushed away his affections and call him a friend. Adrien? That was the warning bell. We better go. Are you sure you're alright? In a loving manner, she placed a hand on his forehead as if her mother would do to a child. You don't feel feverish, but your face is still hot. He could see her calculating what to do when the second bell rang out. Here, lean on me. She linked her arms around his and guided Adrien out, who was still fixed on the daydream he had just had and worried about how real it had seemed. When they reached outside the classroom door, he felt Marinette slowly slide her arm out of his and open the door first. Was she ashamed to walk in with him? They didn't say a word, apart from a casual glance at each other. Marinette's look held a bit more concern than his did. Miss Bustier stood at the front of the class, talking about one thing or another. Adrien could only think about the girl who was sitting behind him, tapping a pencil on the desk when she was thinking, or the slight breeze which tickled the back of his neck as she let out a big sigh. Suddenly, he knew how to tell her once and for all how he felt. Time stands still, beauty in all she is. I will be brave. I will not let anything take away what's standing in front of me. Every breath, every hour has come to this. He took out a small notepad out of his school bag. One step closer. Dearest Marinette, I have died every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for 1,000 years, and I will love you for 1,000 more. And all along, I believe I would find you. Time has brought your heart to me. I have loved you for 1,000 years, and I'll love you 1,000 more. All my love, Adrien. Kiss, kiss. What was he doing? He couldn't just confess confess his heart out in a letter? It was something he had to do face to face. He would invite her for Andre's ice cream after school, just the two of them. He scrunched up the first letter in his hand and carefully wrote out another. Marinette, would you do me the pleasure of meeting me after school for a date? I was thinking we could have a walk and grab an ice cream. Adrien, kiss. Okay, one step closer. Yeah, that sounded good. Should he slip it into a bag or hand it to her? After class, Adrien threw the first letter he wrote, crumpled into the wastebasket, and headed out the door and waited for Marinette to join their small group in the courtyard. Instead, he noticed her heading to the lockers. Okay, second time lucky. This was his chance to be brave. She stood next to her locker, muttering to herself, and it was her time to look flustered with a deep shade of red to her face. Hey, Marinette. Oh, hey, Adrien. What are you doing? No, how are you doing? She flung her arms around in a way he thought was adorable and silly, all at the same time. Bella, thank you for your concern and looking after me this morning. It meant a lot. He closed his hand into a fist so that he didn't reach out and touch her face or shoulder like a loving couple would do. No. Slow down, Adrien. Oh, yeah, sure, she squeaked, fiddling with her fingers. Adrien chuckled. He loved his princess staff side, knowing how serious and strong she could be. She was a complete package for him. Taking a deep breath, he handed her a folded piece of paper. Her bluebell eyes widened to a startling size as she glanced down at the folded sheet of paper, taking Adrien by surprise. What should he do? Then she reached out, her hand shaking, and a bright smile formed on her face, washing him in relief. I was hoping we could go for an ice cream after school. Just the two of us, he said slowly, watching her expression change from happy to excited to scared to alarmed. Silence. You don't have to tell me now. Think about it. Uh-huh, was all she said. Is that a yes? I'll see you back in class. He couldn't hide the disappointment he now felt as he left the locker room. It wasn't the reaction he had daydreamed about. Does she even like him that way? Should he tell her on the date? Wait, she hadn't even said yes to the date. But if she says yes, how could he tell her how he feels? For the rest of lunch, he had only seen Marinette for a brief second as she told their small group that she had something to do and see them in class. Her cheeks were still a deep shade of pink and couldn't look at him. She was going to say no, wasn't she? As he picked out the history book he didn't need this afternoon out of his bag, Adrien noticed the piece of paper he had given to Marinette. He had given it to her. It hadn't been another daydream. He carefully opened it up and read the lines underneath. Love to. Meet you there at 4? Marinette. Kiss kiss. Adrien glanced around, making sure no one else was there before he clutched the piece of paper to his heart and did a little jig of excitement on the spot. Plag! She said yes, he muttered into his shirt as the tiny creature flew out. Yeah, kid, to ice cream. You still need to tell her how you feel. Plag flew into the locker and stole another piece of cheese from the back. Cheers for that piece of information I already knew. Adrien held his shirt open. We need to head to class. So you can see your girlfriend? Plagg teased before disappearing. Adrien said nothing, but the most enormous grin appeared on his face as he looked at the Marinette's line one last time before placing it into his bag. During the afternoon classes, Marinette worked on a group project at the other side of the room, but he caught a couple of glances his way and made tiny fireworks explode inside his stomach. After school, Adrien got a notification on his phone that Andre would be in the Place de Vosges, the park next to Marinette's house. That would work out well. Whilst Natalie thought he had fencing, he can be nearby with Marinette. This was good. Okay, so he had 30 minutes to make a quick stop and then he would be ready. One step closer. Adrien stood in the same spot he had given Marinette her birthday lucky charm over 2 years ago now. But instead, this time he held a bouquet of blushing pink peonies. Excitement ran through his body, causing his nerves to feel like they were charged with electricity as he continued to watch the gate for a sight of her. She had taken the time to change into a light pink polka-dotted dress, and her hair was down, framing her beautiful face. In that moment, he had decided to tell her his feelings. No matter what she might reply, he had to tell her. As he stepped closer, he was suddenly aware how clammy his hands were, how hot and sweaty he had become, and his heart was thudding against his rib cage. Marinette, you look beautiful. Thank you, Adrien. She smiled. Somehow she didn't seem as nervous as he thought she would be. She seemed more like herself when she was with Shat. These are for you. He held the flowers out in front of him, his hand slightly shaking. They are stunning, thank you. Marinette held them to her face and breathed in the delicate scent. Shall we get some ice cream? The ringing sound of Andrea's ice cream stand ran out across the park. Can I speak to you? Tell you something first? For the first time she had arrived, their eyes locked and he fell under the spell of her bluebell stare. Sensing his cheeks were becoming hot and flushed, he gestured to the bench nearby. She didn't say a word, but gave him a gentle smile and the same blossom pink in her cheeks that matched her flowers. Marinette, Oh, why can't he talk all of a sudden? I have died every day waiting for you. She placed a hand on top of his, feeling them tremble in shock. How did she know his words? She kept his gaze. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for 1,000 years, and I love you 1,000 more. Her voice was calm and clear. Even though she had said his words, they somehow felt like hers. She released one of her hands off his and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper out of her small round purse and rolled her bottom lip underneath her teeth as she gave him the cutest smile. Adrien raised his free hand to her face and stroked her cheek, edging a little closer to her. All along, I believe I would find you. Time has brought your heart to me. I have loved you for 1,000 years, Adrien whispered. I'll love you 1,000 more, Marinette replied. One step closer. They closed the gap as Adrien kissed her softly on the lips. Breaking away, he breathed. 1,000 years doesn't seem long enough. I hope you enjoyed 1,000 Years, a lyrical one-shot of Miraculous Ladybug. I hope you hit that like button if you still listen to this bit, and comment down below. Remember, I'm happy to hear your recommendations of any songs that you like, and I can make them into one-shots. It's really fun actually, it's a good challenge. And make sure you subscribe. Okay, thank you, bye.